if you notice, these questions have now variables on both sides. That means these problems are gonna be a tad longer. So what we're gonna be doing is combining first. So we're gonna write our steps here, and we're gonna combine these two together because they're like terms, and we're going to combine these two constants together. Since 6m and negative 7m are opposite signs, that means I'm going to subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. Since 7 is bigger, I know my answer is going to be negative m. I'm going to bring down that 5 is equal to, if I add a positive 10 and a positive 3, it's going to be 13 minus a 5m. And the property I used was combine like terms. Step 2 now is I want to put all the letters on the left side and all the numbers on the right side of my equal sign. So this is my equal sign. That means I need to move things from the left to the right of that pink line by using the addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division property, depending on what step I'm doing. So right now, I want to leave that negative m there, and I'm going to get rid of that negative 5 by doing its opposite. And numbers go with numbers, so this is negative 5 goes at 13 because it doesn't have a letter. Now I'm going to have negative m is equal to, that becomes 0. And now I'm going to have 13 minus 5 is 8 minus 5m. So step 2, since I subtracted both sides by negative 5, that means it's subtraction property. Next step would be step 3, and I'm going to move the negative 5m to the other side by adding its opposite, so that'd be 5m to both sides. Now I have, since they're opposite signs, that means you're going to subtract to keep the sign of the bigger number. So I'm going to have 4m is equal to 8. Step 3, that means I added a 5m to both sides. So that's the addition property of equality. And last step is step 4, which is I need to get rid of that 4. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4. And I'm going to get that m is positive 2. And since I divided both sides by 4, it's going to be division property of equality. This problem in class, you guys did it by yourself and we just checked it. So same kind of thing. We are going to combine our like terms. In this problem number 2, we only have like terms on the left side. So those are going to be combined. On the right side, we have no like terms. So again, since 8 and negative 2 are different signs, you're going to subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. Since 8 is bigger, I know my answer is going to be positive. So I'm going to have 6w plus 4 is equal to w plus 1. And again, I combine like terms there. Second step, I also want to remind you guys that this is my equal sign. Now, when you're combining things, remember, you can only combine things that are on the left or the right side of the equal sign. If you want to move things, then you need to do opposite operation. So the next thing would be I want to move or isolate my 6w. I want the 6w to stay on the left side, and I'm going to move that 4 by doing its opposite. So I'm going to move that 4 to the negative 1, to the positive 1. That becomes a 0, and I'm going to have 6w is equal to w minus 3. And since I subtracted a 4 from both sides, that's the subtraction property of equality. Okay, next step, step 3. I need to get this w right here to the other side, this w to this side. Since it's a positive w, I'm going to subtract w to both sides. That gives me 5w is equal to, that becomes a 0, negative 3. And since I subtracted a w to both sides, that again is subtraction property of equality. And last step, step 4, is divide both sides by 5. The 5 is reduced to a 1, and I get w is equal to negative 3/5. And that means 4, since I divided both sides by a 5, that means that's the division property of equality. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to distribute that 3 to everything in this binomial and that -5. I want you to make sure that you understand that you are distributing that 3 and a -5 in there. So if I go 3 times n, I'm going to have 3n. 3 times -2, I'm going to get -6. I'm going to bring down my -1 and record again. And you're going to have 2, -5 times that is -5n. -5 times that is -25. And what I did was the distributive property. So we're going to write distributive property. Next step is you're going to combine your like terms. Remember that you have a left side and a right side of an equal sign. Anything that's on the left side cannot be combined with anything on the right side. You can use your other properties of inequality to move things around, but that's about it. So step 2, I'm going to combine these two terms together because they're both constants. I'm going to combine this 2 and that -25 because they're on the same side and they're both constants. So I'm going to have 3n, and since they're both negative, I'm going to add them and keep the sign, so that should be -7. Then we have a +2 and a -25. That means I'm going to subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number, so that should be -23 minus 5n. And what I did there was I combined like terms. Okay. Next step is now I want my letters on the left side and I want my numbers on the right side. Since I have 3n has the letter, that one's going to stay there. I'm going to move that -7 to the other side with this number. And I'm going to move this -5n to this side. So it's going to take me around 2 steps. Let's move the -7 first this time, see what happens. So I'm going to have +7, +7. Numbers go with numbers. So we're going to have step 3, 3n. Those cancel out is equal to -23 plus 7, -16 minus 5n. And since I added right here both sides, that's the addition property of equality. Okay, next step that we're going to do is we're going to add the 5n to both sides. And we're going to have 8n is equal to -16. And since I added the 5 into both sides, that again is the addition property of equality. And the last step, step 5, I'm going to divide both sides by 8 to get the n by itself. That means that n is equal to -2 because 8 goes 2 times evenly into -16. And since I divided both sides by 8, that is the division property of equality. So the first thing you need to do is we're going to use the distributive property for this 3 right here. And I'm going to do the distributive property for this 7. Okay, so once I distribute, I'm going to have for my step 1 that 8u just comes down. It's going to be 3 times u, which is positive 3u. 3 times a positive 1, which is a positive 6, is equal to 7 times 2u, 14u. 7 times -1, -7. And again, I have an equal sign. Nothing on the left side can be combined with anything on the right side. But once I combine things, I can use the addition, subtraction property rule to move things around. So next step, I'm going to, I forgot to write down what I did. Distributive property. Okay, so next step would be combine like terms. I'm going to combine these two like terms. If you notice on the right side, these are not like terms, so there's no combining. So I'm going to have 8, 9, 10, 11u plus 6 is equal to 14u minus 7. And again, that was combined like terms. Okay, step 3. I want to again move all my letters. I want all my letters on this side, and I want my numbers on that side. That's what I like to do. If you want to do the opposite, that's fine too. So I'm going to keep that 11u there, and I'm going to move that 6 to the other side by doing its opposite. So the opposite of positive 6 is negative 6. And I'm going to do subtract that 6 with the 7 because numbers go with numbers. That becomes a 0. Now I'm going to have 11u is equal to 14u minus 13. And since I subtracted a 6 from both sides, that is subtraction property of equality. Okay, next step, step 4. I'm going to subtract, the 14u from both sides. And that will give me negative 3u, and negative 13. And since I subtracted from both sides, again, it's a subtraction property of equality. And last step, step 5, divide both sides by a negative 3. I know I'm going pretty fast just because the bell's going to ring pretty soon. U is equal to, I need you to notice, you see how there's two negatives right there? A negative divided by a negative is a positive. So your answer is 13/3. You could leave it as that answer, or you could give me 4 1/3, or you could give me 4.3333, I think. But I don't know why you would do that. If this is just give me that answer, you're done. And step 5 was the division property of equality.